Imagine walking into a high-end luxury store to pick up a gift only to end up in handcuffs because of the color of your skin. Sounds unbelievable, right? But what if I told you that this kind of injustice happens more often than we think? In today's story, we dive into a shocking incident where a female cop, blinded by prejudice, arrests a young black man in a posh boutique. She accuses him of theft, completely unaware of one key detail: he's no ordinary customer. He's a son of the store's owner. Racial profiling in places of privilege, like luxury stores, is more common than most people realize. These incidents remind us that bias doesn't just live on the streets, it seeps into our shopping malls, workplaces, and daily lives. Stick around, because we're not just recounting this outrageous event. We're unpacking the deeper truths behind racial profiling, the hidden struggles of systemic bias, and how moments like these expose the flaws in our society. You'll also witness a twist so dramatic, it'll leave you questioning everything about the power of perception. This story is more than just an eye-opener, it's a wake-up call for all of us. The scene is set in an elegant luxury store, a place where every detail whispers opulence. The marble floors gleam under soft ambient lighting, and polished glass cases showcase designer watches, jewelry, and handbags worth thousands of dollars. The air is subtly scented with expensive fragrances, a signature touch of exclusivity. Staff dressed in sharp suits move with precision, catering to an elite clientele. Amid this world of extravagance walks a young black man. He's dressed in casual but high-end attire, a tailored jacket, designer sneakers, and a crisp shirt that hints at quiet confidence. His posture is relaxed, but his presence doesn't go unnoticed. He scans the shelves with an attentive gaze, occasionally checking his phone. Despite his composed demeanor, there's a hint of curiosity in how he moves, as if he's familiar with the environment but still exploring. The sales staff glance his way, but don't approach their faces, betraying subtle judgment. It's the kind of scrutiny that doesn't require words, a silent question of whether he belongs in this space. He doesn't seem bothered. Instead, he picks up a sleek watch from a display, examining it with the ease of someone who knows its value, perhaps even its history. Yet despite his calm exterior, the atmosphere around him begins to shift. As the young man continues browsing, the entrance door swings open, and in steps a female police officer. Her presence is authoritative, almost commanding. She's dressed in full uniform, with a badge that catches the light and a radio crackling faintly at her side. Her eyes scan the store, sharply assessing every corner with a practiced gaze. She's been called here likely by someone who assumed there was a problem. Her focus quickly lands on the young black man. There's a momentary pause as she observes him, her expression shifting to one of suspicion. Perhaps it's the casual way he's dressed, or the expensive watch he's holding. Maybe it's nothing more than a bias she carries unconsciously, but it's enough for her to make a decision. Without hesitation, she strides toward him, her boots clicking sharply against the marble floor. The air grows tense as she approaches, her voice cutting through the quiet ambience of the store. "Excuse me, sir," she begins, her tone firm and laced with authority. "Can you explain what you're doing here? This isn't a place for browsing." The young man looks up, surprised but calm. He offers a polite response, explaining that he's looking at the watch. But the officer's suspicion doesn't waver. She narrows her eyes, her voice growing sharper. "Do you have a receipt for that? Or are you planning to pay for it after you walk out the door?" The accusation hangs heavy in the air, drawing the attention of other shoppers and staff. The young man, still composed, calmly places the watch back on the counter. "I haven't stolen anything," he replies evenly. But the officer isn't convinced. Her hand moves toward her radio, signaling that she's preparing to escalate the situation further. The tension in the store thickens as the officer's voice grows louder, drawing even more eyes to the scene. She demands identification, but the young man calmly explains that he doesn't have it on him. This only seems to confirm her suspicions. "You expect me to believe you just wandered in here to window shop? These items aren't exactly affordable for everyone," she snaps, her tone biting. The young man remains composed, his expression unwavering. Ma'am, I've done nothing wrong, he says evenly. His voice is measured, respectful, but firm. I was just looking at the watch. If you speak to the staff, they'll tell you I didn't touch anything I wasn't supposed to. But the officer isn't interested in explanations. She steps closer, pulling out a pair of handcuffs. Enough with the excuses, she says sharply. Turn around and put your hands behind your back. You're coming with me. Gasps ripple through the store as she grabs his arm. The young man doesn't resist. He turns to face her, his eyes steady, his voice calm but filled with quiet dignity. You're making a mistake, he says. I'm not who you think I am. Even as she cuffs him, he maintains his composure. He doesn't yell or argue. Instead, he simply adds, You'll want to speak with the owner before you do this. Trust me. His words hang in the air, leaving a sense of mystery that seems to unnerve the officer even if only for a moment. With the cuffs secured, she begins to lead him toward the door. The onlookers, silent and stunned, exchange glances, but say nothing. The store, once filled with an air of exclusivity, now feels heavy with discomfort and disbelief. As the officer begins leading the young man toward the store's exit, a commanding voice cuts through the uneasy silence. What is going on here? All heads turn toward the entrance, where a middle-aged man dressed in an impeccable suit strides in. He exudes authority, his expression a mix of confusion and concern. It's clear from the way the staff react that this is no ordinary customer. This is the store's owner. The officer halts momentarily, caught off guard. I received a report of suspicious activity. She starts, her tone firm, but less confident now. This individual was handling expensive merchandise and refused to provide identification. The owner's sharp eyes land on the young man, and for a brief second, there's a flicker of recognition. His expression softens, replaced by a mixture of surprise and dismay. This individual, he repeats, his voice calm, but with an edge. Officer, do you have any idea who this is? The officer hesitates, clearly unsettled by his tone. No, but his behavior. The owner interrupts her, stepping closer to the young man. This is my son, he says firmly, the weight of his words silencing the room. A collective gasp ripples through the onlookers. The officer's face pales as the realization sinks in. For a moment, she's frozen, her grip on the handcuffs loosening. Your son, she stammers, her voice barely audible. Yes, the owner replies, his voice steady but cold. And I would like an explanation as to why my son is in handcuffs in my store. The young man, still calm, looks directly at the officer. I told you, he says simply. His tone isn't triumphant or accusatory. It's just the truth laid bare. The officer stumbles over her words, attempting to justify her actions, but the damage is done. The truth has unraveled the situation completely, leaving her visibly shaken as she fumbles to remove the cuffs. The room is thick with a mixture of shock, awkwardness, and a growing sense of accountability. The officer's hands tremble slightly as she fumbles with the keys to unlock the cuffs. Her once authoritative demeanor has all but crumbled, replaced by visible discomfort and shock. She opens her mouth to speak, but hesitates, as if struggling to find the right words. Finally, she stammers, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. Her voice trails off her face, flushed with embarrassment. The young man rubs his wrists, now free of the cuffs, but says nothing. His calm silence seems more powerful than any words could be. The owner, however, steps forward, his face a mask of controlled anger. You didn't realize what, he asks, his voice sharp, that he wasn't a thief, or that he didn't fit whatever stereotype you had in your head. The officer shifts uncomfortably, clearly out of her depth. I was just responding to a call, she says weakly, attempting to justify her actions. I thought. You thought wrong, the owner interjects, his tone unrelenting. You didn't think at all. Instead of asking questions, you jumped to conclusions. You embarrassed my son, yourself, and frankly my store. The officer nods, her head lowered. I'm truly sorry, she says again, her voice barely above a whisper. I made a mistake. The owner takes a deep breath, his expression softening slightly, but his words remain firm. Sorry isn't enough. Mistakes like this have real consequences. You saw what you wanted to see, not what was actually in front of you. I hope this is a lesson you won't forget. The officer looks up, her eyes filled with a mix of regret and humiliation. It won't happen again, she promises. But her words, though sincere, hang heavy in the air, met with silence. The owner turns to his son, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Let's go," he says simply. As they walk away, the store feels frozen, every gaze fixed on the officer standing alone in the middle of the marble floor, left to reckon with the consequences of her actions. This incident is a stark reminder of the damaging effects of racial profiling. It shows how quick judgments rooted in bias can lead to humiliation, harm, and fractured trust. In this case, a young man's dignity was threatened simply because of assumptions tied to his appearance. It's a story that highlights the urgent need to confront and challenge these ingrained prejudices in our society. But this isn't just about one officer or one incident, it's about all of us. We need to reflect on our own biases and how they shape our actions, whether consciously or unconsciously. Equality isn't just a principle, it's a practice. And change begins when we choose to see people for who they are, not for the stereotypes we've been taught. If this story moved you, let it be a starting point for conversations about fairness, justice, and respect. Let's strive to create a world where everyone is treated with dignity, no matter their background or appearance. If you found this video insightful, please give it a like and share it to spread awareness. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories that inspire change. Together, we can build a more understanding and inclusive future. This story is a work of fiction created to shed light on the critical issue of racial profiling and its impact on individuals and society. While the events and characters are not real, the message behind the story aims to encourage reflection, conversation, and a deeper understanding of the need for equality and justice in our daily lives.